Dear YouTube, this video may be a controversial one, and here's why. Welcome to my Stager YouTube channel. If you are meeting me for the first time, my name is Mickey Joe, I'm obsessed with all things theatre, and I make YouTube videos mostly about musical theatre, and most of my audience on here is musical theatre fans. And if you see a video about a show you love, you are going to want to click on that video and watch it. So I'm always very aware that if I'm talking about something in maybe not such a positive light, it is going to cause people some level of distress, and that is never my intention. However, I do also value my own credibility very much, and I've never been anything but completely honest on this platform. So all that being said, here are my thoughts on the DEAR EVAN HANSEN film. Now this is coming quite late in the global discourse because even though it's been out in the US for about a month, it has only just debuted in a select few UK cinemas, one of which happens to be very near to me. So I actually went to go and see the film today, and I have thoughts. I have so many thoughts. I kind of felt the same way about it I expected to after watching some other people's videos on it, reading some other people's blog posts, reading some of the heinous reviews, and the general social media backlash. Really, the only positive things I had seen written about this film came from die-hard fans of the show who were always going to love it. To summarise, my thoughts on this film are basically that it should not have been made. I don't understand why it has been made. I think it was a mistake for various reasons, and we're going to talk about them today. So here are the 5 reasons why the DEAR EVAN HANSEN movie went wrong. Reason number 1. I don't understand why this film was made. Certainly a few years ago when Hamilton was very big, DEAR EVAN HANSEN was sort of there alongside it, and it was marketed incredibly well as the musical about mental health, and it became very, very popular with a lot of young people, and a lot of that momentum gave it a lot more status than perhaps it deserves alongside some of the other shows that were debuting around the same time, shows like Come From Away. Don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of DEAR EVAN HANSEN. I enjoy DEAR EVAN HANSEN. Where's my cushion? There we go. I am a fan of DEAR EVAN HANSEN. I enjoy this show. However, I think it's a show that features mental health. I don't think it's the definitive, amazing, perfect depiction of mental health, either on stage or in this film version. And I think when anything tackles such complex themes, you always have to have a discussion about whether it is doing so in a way that's responsible, in a way that is instigating positive and effective conversations, and in a way that's not going to be damaging to young and vulnerable people. A lot of similar conversations happened when 13 Reasons Why was premiering on Netflix. And there are moments in the DEAR EVAN HANSEN film that feel tonally very close to that. There's a part of the film I didn't particularly enjoy where Zoe is singing the end of Requiem and she is speeding down a motorway and letting go of the wheel to feel alive or whatever, and it's very Perks of Being a Wallflower, very Footloose. It's very teenage mental health aesthetic rather than having a valuable, meaningful conversation about adolescent mental health. I also feel like it's just a cheap way of trying to do something visually powerful with the end of that song when it could come across just as stirringly if she was just singing it in her room. You know, you don't need that in the stage production. The music and the writing is strong enough in that particular moment. It doesn't need 100 miles per hour on the motorway. My other thing with this is I don't know what the message of DEAR EVAN HANSEN is. I was thinking about it today and I honestly can barely tell you what the message of the show is meant to be, because people will say it's You Will Be Found, because that's the thing that we all come away, and that's the anthem, and that's the big song, and like, we love that, that's a great message, except that's the end of Act 1, and You Will Be Found ends in a minor key because it's all rooted in lies. So is that really where the characters have all arrived at by the end of the show? Is You Will Be Found the message? In the show they finish by singing All We See Is Sky over and over again. I don't know what that means. In the film it's a different lyric at the end, and I don't know what the message of this film is. Is it that you're you and that's enough? Is it yet another musical theatre story about just being true to yourself? I don't know, but I feel like that's a question I should be able to answer after seeing the film. Issue number 2, let's talk about Ben Platt. So when his casting was announced earlier this year, I came onto YouTube And I defended this to a certain extent. I don't think he looks ridiculously old, and I think the backlash and the hate that he has been receiving has been disproportionate and malicious, quite frankly, from a lot of the musical theatre internet community. Now, when I was watching his performance today, I thought he gelled perfectly fine with the rest of the cast. I honestly didn't notice his age. I didn't have an issue. It didn't break my immersion from the film. No more so than when we were watching Glee a decade ago and all of the teenagers there were being played by actors in their late 20s. But I've had this conversation before. Now, having seen the full film, it wasn't an issue for me. Him playing opposite Zoe, him playing opposite Jared, I didn't have a problem with that. What I wasn't expecting was that, and this again, very controversial, I'm going to clutch this even tighter to myself, I didn't really enjoy his performance that much. And I am a big Ben Platt fan. I have seen Ben Platt in concert, I have watched bootlegs of his DEAR EVAN HANSEN performance back in the day. I enjoy Ben Platt in a great many things. I have a poster of one of his lyrics that hangs above my bed. Like, I am a big Ben Platt fan. I didn't get it in this, you know, because he's such a dynamic performer, and I just felt, I don't know, he felt very muted in this. He felt like all of his natural theatricality was being suppressed by a director who was going for a more minimalist tone and a more subtle, less theatrical tone. Because, you know, why would movie musicals be theatrical? Honestly, they have to be serious and introspective and dull. Dear Meh Van Hansen. And his singing is always phenomenal. I didn't like his vocals in this as much as I have in other things, and again, it was raw and it was real and it was powerful, and if his vocals had been amazing, incredible Ben Platt studio flawless, it only would have showed up the fact that a lot of the other vocals recorded for this film were not. The biggest issue in this is that his Evan is just not likable in this film, not even a little bit. You do not root for this character, and I think that's both because you see too much of the machination behind it all that you aren't shown in the stage version, where you're seeing him sort of plotting and planning and getting what he wants out of the situation, but also you are missing the opportunity to laugh and be charmed by him in the beginning, because in the stage show it opens with there is laughter and there are jokes and there is comedy before there is stress, before there is anxiety, and before there is trauma in this show. They open with convincing you to like him and winning you over first. That does not happen in the film. They start with, oh, this is what anxiety's like, and let us try and show you what anxiety's like, which doesn't really work for me the way they did it, but perhaps other people found it effective. And there have been a lot of op-eds and reviews about why Ben Platt's performance doesn't quite work in this medium and doesn't quite work in this film. Honestly, there are just some weird moments. He just has some strange facial expressions, like words fail should be this incredible passionate climax, and it's not. He's sort of quietly sobbing throughout the whole thing, but like at times it looks like he's almost smiling, and he's just very awkward and odd. It's an uncomfortable performance at times, and not in a good way. Reason number 3, and I could talk about this at length, so I'm going to have to edit myself on this one. The musical numbers. Oh my god, I hated the way they did the musical numbers. All of them. All of them. There was not one musical number that I enjoyed the way that they shot it for this film. They kept going back to this trope of walking down the corridors singing and school happening around them. It was so Glee. It hurt me. I honestly feel like this director has not seen any of the great movie musicals of recent years or of yesteryear, but has watched Glee and understands that that's how you put a song in a high school setting onto a film, and it's really, really not. You know, there were moments of Sincerely Me that I liked. I liked when they were in the go-karts. I liked when they were doing the dance mat at the end. I just could have done with less of the walking around the corridors constantly. Alana did this as well when she was singing her new song, which I didn't dislike. When it reprised itself later in the film and we heard it for the second time and she kept repeating the same lyric over and over and over and over again, that I did not enjoy quite as much. I didn't miss Anybody Have a Map. I didn't miss To Break in a Glove. I did miss Disappear because I feel like we didn't get enough of Connor's character in this film, and I really missed Good For You because the scene with the two mothers meeting over dinner and them offering Evan the money for his tuition, that was so brilliant. I enjoyed that scene very much. It was so tense, it was so stressful, and then they go outside and the fight doesn't really go anywhere. It's a very unsatisfying fight scene between Evan and his mother, and it needed Good For You to just become that climax of it. Then you have strange choices, like in For Forever, which it would make perfect sense to flash back to fake memories with Connor. They do a little bit at the end, but they spend most of it just with him sat around this dinner table just narrating this story, which is obviously what happens on stage, but you're in a film, you can show us other things. It just lacked creativity, it lacked imagination, and it was just pedestrian. There were so many missed opportunities for clever moments. One of my favourite touches in the show is in Sincerely Me, when Jared is writing the email on Evan's behalf, and he writes, "If I stop smoking crack," and the way that the actor playing Connor is directed to sing it is to sing it like he's a crack addict, and then it changes to "If I stop smoking pot," and he sings it in a very more relaxed, like, "Oh, if I stop smoking pot" way. And there was no difference between the two in the film version. I'm like, you're just saying lines. No one cares about this song. This is a director who cares about these scenes. And he's like, right now a song is happening, walk around the school, we'll keep a camera on you, jump on this table, and hopefully it'll be over soon. There's a bit with Connor and Evan dancing with sticks, and the choreography is so Broadway and so not how those characters would dance. It's ridiculous to me. I say I didn't like any of the musical numbers. I liked the fact that they kept So Big So Small just with the two of them on the couch. You could have done flashbacks to a young Evan. That I feel would have been really emotionally impactful, but I guess they didn't want to. They were shooting during COVID. That would have been challenging. All I could focus on at that point was I really didn't like the way that Julianne Moore was singing that song, but more on her in a minute. Reason number 4 that I think the Dear Evan Hansen movie had issues: pointless changes to the show. Don't get me wrong, I loved Nick Dodani as Jared. He was hysterical, and fair enough that Jared is gay now. You know, some of that made sense with him making fun of Evan and Connor being alleged lovers. And then the bit where he puts in about saying "my sister's hot" in the email, I'm like, is he doing that just to make fun of Evan? Because in the show I sort of feel like he normally does it from his own perspective. I also feel like specifically in the second half of the film, we very much lost Jared's character. One of my favourite touches in the show is the last chorus of Sincerely Me. Jared gets involved and he does the choreography with the other two, and you start to get the sense that even though he pretends to be very aloof and he acts like he doesn't need Evan's friendship, this might mean more to him than you realise, which is very much confirmed towards the end of the show. However, this doesn't go anywhere with Nick's character as Jared, and he gets involved with the Connor project. You never know why, because he seemed ostensibly not to care about it at all at the beginning. Another big change, Larry Murphy being a stepdad rather than a biological father. I don't know why this was necessary. It wasn't as bad as I was worrying that it might be, because they didn't lean on the whole, oh, they had a strained relationship because he didn't get on with his stepfather. They actually had a very positive relationship, but he just happened to be his stepfather. I really don't know what the motivation was for doing that. They added in some nice lines about it. I didn't hate that dialogue. I just don't understand what the reason was. Unless it was just another opportunity to add diversity, because the way they tried to show diversity in this cast that does not exist. While the casting was being announced, there was a lot of demand on social media for the role of Evan to go to a young black performer, and that did not end up happening. It went to Ben Platt in a move that surprised no one, but subsequently they announced 2 other black members of the cast playing named roles of high school students, and we were like, oh, new people. And it turns out, no, they have like a line each in You Will Be Found. Isaac Powell is one of them, and they're really nothing characters. Reason number 5, the whole character of Heidi Hansen and the casting of Julianne Moore, really. I think she's miscast in this. I'll go as far as to say that. Heidi is probably my favourite character in the show. The relationship between her and Evan is such an interesting one. It's very multi-layered, it's not very one note, and you know, there's a warmth between the two of them that has to exist beneath the strained tension and beneath her working all the time and being sort of a little bit emotionally unavailable to him. I didn't get that in the film. She's quite cold, he's quite cold to her in response. There's just not a lot of love between the two in the earlier parts of the film. In the scene where she's fighting with Evan after they meet the Murphys, she's just so completely obnoxious and self-involved. I don't like the way that that's played. Also, So Big So Small is a beautiful piece of musical theatre that she absolutely cannot sing. There are moments of it where the acting is good enough to carry it through, and I'm not saying you need to be an incredible singer to put that kind of a song across. However, somewhere between having to live up to Rachel Bay Jones, who is an incredible vocalist and actress who won a Tony Award for this role, hello, and the fact that it comes at such an important moment of the show. It's really the 11 o'clock number, but it's this entire song that exists only to remind Evan how much his mother loves him. And it sort of comes out of nowhere based on the nothing of a relationship that they've developed up until that point in the film. Even in earlier moments where she's concerned that he was friends with Connor, and then he's saying, oh, it was written on my cast as a tribute to him. And she sort of shows relief, but not enough relief. So I'm thinking while I'm watching the film, does she buy that? Is she believing that? I'm not understanding what she's playing, really. So that felt like a failure to me. Contrastingly, I really enjoyed Amy Adams as Cynthia Murphy. She had some beautiful moments. And Danny Pino as Larry Murphy as well. My favourite part of Dear Evan Hansen is still Larry Murphy having a breakdown at the end of You Will Be Found. It's more powerful on stage than it was in the film version, but I like that they kept that in. I do think Amy Adams would have benefited more from having been able to do the scene that normally goes at the start. All of the Murphys, really, because you need to see their dynamic with Connor and then see them afterwards, because otherwise when you're just seeing her criticizing her husband without seeing how he had behaved towards him and sort of how they'd been operating, it was a really important part of that family's story. Taking it away kind of implies to us as the audience, we only really care about Evan here. We'll explain the trajectories of the other characters to you because they'll just tell you about how they got on with each other, but we're not going to show you because it doesn't really matter. Similarly, we start to meet Alana, but then just as quickly as she's arrived, she kind of fades back into the background. She makes this choice at the end that has these drastic consequences, and it's never really clear to us why based on her character motivations. You know, she's not very understanding. I have the same issue with Alana in the show. I think she's quite a hypocritical character, but that never really gets unpacked or explored. Through all of this, my prevailing thoughts are just, I don't know why this movie got made. I don't know how this movie was ever going to be successful. Some musicals just aren't ever going to translate well to film. But what I think they did here is they took something that's not effervescently theatrical in the first place and they tried to make it more somber and more serious, and in doing so they removed all of the fun from the stage show. They removed what little humor it had. They removed any sense of color. You know, this film has this bland color palette. It's quite visually dull, if I'm being honest, and tonally speaking it's quite dreary throughout. It doesn't have a lot of levity to offer, and I say this with disappointment more than anything else because I do enjoy this show. I've seen it in the West End. I'm a fan of a lot of this music. I'm a fan of a lot of the people involved. A lot of the cast I thought were very good. A part of me thinks that it could have been done a lot better, and then another part of me thinks this was never going to be a successful project. I'm very curious to hear what you all think. Let me know in the comment section down below what issues you had with the film, whether you enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to stick up for the film. Tell us what you loved about it. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to subscribe to my Stagey YouTube channel for plenty more videos coming very soon about all of your favourite musicals and movie musicals. Also, if you want to support me as a Stagey content creator, head over to patreon.com/MickeyJoeTheatre, where you can gain access to all sorts of exclusive photo and video content. I hope that everyone is staying safe and that you have a stagey day. For 10 more seconds, I'm Mickey Joe Theatre. Oh my god, hey. Thanks for watching, have a stagey day. Subscribe!